Here's a recap of The Punisher and Daredevil in The Punisher Seasons 1 and 2. We first see The Punisher and Daredevil Season 2, gunning down different gangs within New York, and we discover that Frank Castle has had his family taken out by gangs and he became the Punisher as a way of ridding New York of its filth. Daredevil and Punisher fight a couple times and have a long conversation about morality. Castle eventually gets arrested, put on trial, thrown in prison, and meets Kingpin, who helps him get out of prison. Castle then chases a lead that Kingpin gave him and finds and eliminates one of the men responsible for taking out his family, which leads us to Punisher Season 1, where Frank has given up his life as the Punisher to become a construction worker, but one of Frank's co-workers gets into trouble with a local gang and Frank has to step in and mop the floor with them, which draws the attention of a hacker named Micro, a former NSA analyst who found footage of Castle's old Marine unit torturing and taking out an agent named Ahmad Zubair. So we sent the footage to Agent Dina Madani, a Homeland Security officer who was Zubair's former partner. But Micro's superiors weren't thrilled that he was exposing the US military like this, so they try and take him out. He fakes his death, then secretly watches his family live their lives from a distance in his do-it-yourself Batcave. We end up finding out that back in the day, Castle and his BFF Billy Russo were recruited to join a unit called Cerberus, led by the super shady William Rollins, where their mission was to take out high-profile targets, but Rollins was up to some really sketchy stuff, so Castle and Billy both got out. And to cover his tracks, Rollins ordered a hit on Castle, but it was his family that was taken out as collateral damage. Throughout the rest of the season, Castle and Micro work to take down Rollins, and Agent Madani also tries to get to the bottom of Cerberus's operation. Both her and Frank try to recruit Billy Russo to help, but he's resistant because he's supposedly moved on, and now he runs a private military firm known as Anvil. Micro sends the evidence that him and Castle have found on Rollins to Madani, so she tries to bring in Castle to testify about Rollins and bring him down, but plot twist, Russo shows up and he shoots Madani and tries to take out Castle, because it turns out he's been working with Rollins this whole time and Rollins has helped him fund Anvil. We also learn that Russo knew about Rollins' hit on Castle's family and did nothing about it. Castle gets away, so Russo kidnaps Micro's family. Madani and Castle help get Micro's family back, but Castle gets caught and tortured by Russo and Rollins. But Castle sets up a trap and has his torture and Rollins and Russo's confessions about their crimes automatically uploaded to the internet. So Russo panics and gets away, Castle gets free and he takes out Rollins, and then Russo and Castle have a showdown at the carousel where Castle's family was gunned down. Castle beats Russo to a pulp and horribly disfigures his face. And Season 1 ends with Russo in the hospital and Castle and Micro being free men. In Season 2, Frank meets a girl named Amy who almost gets jumped by these thugs who were sent by a psychotic, uber-religious man named John Pilgrim, who works as a hitman for the super-rich, religious, and powerful Schultz family. Pilgrim's wife is extremely sick, so the Schultz family has agreed to pay for her treatment in return for his loyalty, because it turns out this girl Amy has some serious blackmail on the Schultz family's son, David, who's the senator. So Frank ends up protecting Amy with the help of Agent Madani. Billy Russo's also back with his disfigured face that somehow isn't near as disfigured as it should be after the events of Season 1, but he's experiencing severe amnesia and doesn't really remember any of the events prior to Operation Cerberus. Nonetheless, he recruits a bunch of disgruntled veterans to form an army because they feel that they've been wronged by society, and he becomes the villain known as Jigsaw. And Madani and Castle now have to worry about him too. Russo also develops a super toxic relationship with his therapist who works as an accomplice to his crimes. But back to Pilgrim, his wife ends up passing away, so the Schultz family kidnaps his children to keep him motivated to finish his mission. Pilgrim eventually finds and kidnaps Amy. Castle shows up and almost takes out Pilgrim until Pilgrim begs him to save his children. Castle shows mercy and takes out the Schultz family to free Pilgrim's children and ensure Amy's long-term safety. Madani and Russo's therapists fight and Madani pushes her out a window, so Billy tries to take out Madani, but she shoots him. Russo flees, but Castle finds him, and Russo apologizes to Castle for everything, even though he still doesn't really remember what happened, and Castle finally eliminates Russo. And the show ends with Frank Castle fully embracing his persona of the Punisher, committing himself to rid New York of the scum of the earth the only way that he knows how.